Welcome back, explorers. I'm David, that's Wesley, and this is the Trailcast.
That's right. Yeah, I've foregone any intros. So, anyways, getting right into the podcast, David. We have talked about this, and today we are going to start our conversation off, at least start it, with reading a little bit of some Wikipedia articles, specifically one that I've picked out. Now, obviously, for any Star Wars fans, Wikipedia is just what it sounds like. It's Star Wars Wikipedia.
It's the wiki page for Star Wars.
Yeah, so it has a lot of information about different Star Wars characters, events, stuff like that. So, since last week we talked about The Force Awakens, I don't know if you mentioned this character. I feel like I remember you mentioning it, and it got my mind going, and I wanted to talk about this character. Mara Jade Skywalker. So, David, what do you know about her?
I mean, I know... I don't actually know a whole lot, because Mara Jade is one of those characters that has been in so many different things in the expanded universe and Legends, from comic books to all this different stuff to fan fiction to, well, okay, let's face it, most of Legends is just fan fiction, but
yeah,
you know what I mean. She's been and all this stuff, and she's one of these characters that is an original character to Legends.
Speaking of fan, go ahead.
But
continue your thoughts.
I mean, I do think she's a really cool character from her backstory of being like basically a Sith assassin, and then basically being turned to the light side by Luke Skywalker, and eventually them getting married. So yeah, I do think she's a very interesting character.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously. We are not going to, at least I am not, going to read through this whole entire Wikipedia article. If you are interested in reading more about Mara Jade Skywalker, look her up. You can literally just type her name into Google, and the first search results will probably be a Wikipedia page. And you can read through this whole entire very long article that was written about her and her life and all that stuff. We're going to hit the highlights of it. But real quick, David, I did want to ask, I sent you a video earlier. Did you watch that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I want to talk about that. But not now. We'll save that for the end. But it had to do with fan fiction. And I want to talk about that after we get through the main body of this podcast. But starting out, let's go ahead and start reading the article here. David, did you want to pull up it, or are you just going to listen to me read?
I just pulled it up on my phone so I can follow along with you here.
Okay, cool. Now, this is the thing, David. This is Star Wars that we're talking about here. I read through most of this article earlier. There's some big words. So I'm going to lean on you because obviously you're the perfect person to lean on whenever it comes to reading.
Yeah,
we're in a bad boat here.
For a little bit of context here, I'm dyslexic, and we're pretty sure Wesley's also dyslexic, so not really the best people for this, but...
Hey, I have no doctors saying anything. I've never seen them about it, but hey, if a doctor hasn't said it, it doesn't count.
Yeah, so...
my wife's not a doctor. Okay. Anyways, jumping into this, we're going to read through this, and we're going to hopefully hope that this turns out okay. I'm going to start reading some of this. All right, so Mara Jade Skywalker is a Force-sensitive human female who was, during different times in her life, an Emperor's hand, a smuggler, and later a Jedi Master who sat on the Jedi High Council. She was raised as a servant and assassin to Emperor Palpatine and became a high-level Force-using operative. As an emperor's hand, Jade carried out the emperor's bidding, killing rebels and corrupt imperials alike with cold professionalism. Even a young woman, even as a young woman. I do want to mention this within reading this because it's basically Wikipedia. Um, it's not there's certain times I'll read through it and sometimes it's not grammatically correct or like there's not like commas or the words
So
like the
it
wording's not right. So there are things like that in it.
it's even worse than Wikipedia because, well, yes, almost anyone can become and can edit on Wikipedia. This is even worse because there's nowhere near the amount of moderators and people who actually go in and proofread and edit all the Wikipedia articles. So wiki
Yeah,
pages are generally worse for that kind of thing.
yeah. So there is that, but all in all, most likely any stumbling that I do will be of my own accord. Anyways, so where was I? Let's see. Even as a young woman, as Palpatine's assassin, she received top-notch training from experts in a variety of fields, as well as training in the Force, which was continued by Luke Skywalker years after. Later, after Palpatine's death, she received his last command, which was to kill Luke Skywalker. However, the death of her master caused her to go rogue. Eventually, she joined smuggler chief Talion Karad. Go with it.
Talon Karad, yeah.
Becoming one of the best smugglers and his second in command. During uh during the what David tell me that word because I'm blanking.
Predations.
Predation. Anyways, during the predations of Grand Admiral Thrawn, she was forced to work with Skywalker and develop a grudging respect for him. During the Galactic Civil War, Mara Jade proved herself skilled in a variety of fields. He was a good pilot, a mechanic, and trained in the use of both blasters and hand-to-hand combat, even without relying on the Force. David, I do want to ask that. And I know, obviously, you just got Thrawn trilogy, but to your knowledge, is she in the Thrawn trilogy? Because neither one of us have read through it. I don't know how much you know about it, but is she a character in it?
I don't know if she's in Heir to the Empire. She is in the later books, and in fact, she is on the cover of my copy of Last Command. So I don't know if she's introduced like near towards the end of Heir to the Empire or if it's in one of the later books, but I do know she's in the Thrawn trilogy later on.
Now, David, I also want to say this. You remember in high school, it's been a while since either one of us have been in high school, but you remember in high school how you do book reports?
Mm-hmm.
I'll want one of those on the podcast for each one of these books when you finish them. So be prepared to not only read, but write a report on it and talk to us about it on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna be expecting that.
Oh, so instead of you reading them, you want me to just tell you about them?
Read them eventually, but I don't know if it's going to be anytime soon.
Fair enough.
There's a lot of Star Wars content out there. I don't have time to read everything. I've read it. I've read a decent amount of them, but there's a lot.
Yes, there is.
All right. So moving on. Over the years, she continued to work for, what do you say his name was? Karad?
Something like that.
The smuggler guy. Karad. And interacted with Skywalker intermediately, training as his Jedi Proxium on Yavin 4 for a short period of time. She was groomed by Karad to take over the Smugglers Alliance and had a brief relationship with Lando Calrissian as part of a role. Lando, dirty dog. Anyways, although she later admitted it was a charade, she also continued to grow closer to Skywalker and worked alongside him on numerous occasions, including the Armenian uprising, and the Karelian crisis. The two finally realized in 19 ABY, while on a mission to Nurayam, Star Wars,
Neuron.
Iran, that they were in love and wanted to spend the rest of their lives together. Oh, David, how sweet. Okay. After marrying, such a simple thing to say, and I can't. After marrying Skywalker, Mara Jade took the surname Skywalker and devoted her life to the new Jedi Order, becoming a master in her own right. Shortly before the Yuzon Vong War, she fell ill due to deadly comb spores that she'd been infected with by a Yuzon Vong agent. She used the Force to slow their progress, even as she continued to fight against the alien invaders on numerous battlefields, including Dantooine and Ilthor.
Ethor. Something like
Ethor.
that. Yeah.
It's one that I think I've heard before, but anyway, moving on. But the disease was only purged from her system after the birth of her son, Ben, in 26 ABY. To becoming a master, Jade Skywalker took her niece, Jaina Solo, as an apprentice until she reached knighthood. During that time, she participated in Jedi offenses against the Yuzon Vong, aiding in the war effort. After the fall of Coruscant, that is Coruscant, right?
Yeah.
Coruscant, whatever. Coruscant. She helped Cal Umas become elected as the chief of state in the New Republic. As the New Republic reorganized itself into the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances. Jade Skywalker ultimately saw her efforts against Yuzon Vong rewarded in the war's final battle on Coruscant with the death of Supreme Overlord Mara Jade. We're going to go with it. All right. I'm going to read this final one, and then I have some talking points I want to go over. In the following years, Mara Jade was active in the Darkness Crisis and was subsequent Swarm War, wherein she helped to thwart the expansionist plans of Rhinar Thurul, and his insectoid that's a weird word.
Killix.
It looks like Killix. Oh, it's just Killix? That sounds so much easier than it looks. Looks like 5 L's in the middle there. Like Killiks. It looks weird.
Oh, man.
Anyways, it is insectoid Killix who were spreading into Chiss space and subverting many other people to become joiners under the influence of several dark Jedi. Jade was insistent that the Jedi who had joined Killick communities would be withdrawn as they were using their skills in combat against the Chiss, provoking them. Yada yada yada. How much of this is more important? There's a lot of names down here. I do want to get to at the end of this talking about like end of her life and what happens there. Most of the rest of it kind of just goes into detail. A lot of the overview that's read at the top there. But yeah, she was a Sith assassin, essentially Emperor's Hand, who her last command was after Palpatine died was to kill Luke Skywalker, which more or less was fulfilled on a mission that her and Skywalker went on, where they ran into a clone of Luke Skywalker, and she ended up killing him. And then her and Skywalker fell in love. She helped him with his new Jedi Order, which is something I want to touch on. It was something we were talking about last week. But she helped him with his new Jedi Order. and her and Skywalker had a son, Ben Skywalker. And yada 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 stuff happened, and we'll get to the end of her life a little bit later. But anyways, you have anything to add real quick, David?
Well, right now I'm just thinking about the fact that I would have loved to see us actually get the whole Thrawn and Yu Zhongvong invasion in movies.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, so here's the thing, and I was talking to Sarah about this earlier. The thing about Legends after Return of the Jedi is it makes sense, right? So after the Empire falls, what's the next big threat? Thrawn, who gathers together remnants of the Empire. That's kind of the next logical leap. That this military leader would be the next big threat, binding together the remnants of the Empire. All right, okay, so that makes sense. Well, then that gets taken care of. That's defeated. What's the next big threat? An invading species, the Yuzon Vong, come in, and that's the next big threat. That makes sense. Throughout this whole entire thing, the big threats make sense. And not only does that make sense, but the way that the characters are written makes sense, because they wrote these characters with the ending of Return of the Jedi in mind. I don't think that they did that when they made the sequels. And I don't even think that they did that when they're writing most of what Disney Star Wars is making now. As much as I do like things here and there that Disney Star Wars has done, I'm not a complete hater on every single thing Disney Star Wars. I don't like a lot of the ways that they've done certain things. Like, obviously, I think anyone who's a real big original trilogy fan can agree Luke Skywalker is not Luke Skywalker in the sequels. I would argue that he's not even Luke Skywalker in the Mandalorian TV shows. Like, what Luke Skywalker is, and something that we'll dive into a little bit within all this, what Luke Skywalker is in Legends is what you expect Luke Skywalker from the end of Return of the Jedi to be, 5, 10, 20 years down the road. But he's not that 5, 10, 20 years down the road in what now is considered canon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing too, because, and well, here's the thing too. I honestly think even what George Lucas had pitched for a sequel trilogy would have been really cool too.
Yes.
To see, and honestly, so this would probably be way too much for a trilogy, but I would love to have seen them do that with. Okay, so the New Republic would have been weak no matter what they're building a government from scratch, and even with all the using all the imperial stuff that was already in place, New Republic would not have been able to in the time that like the Thrawn trilogy takes place and stuff. The New Republic still isn't that strong, so you'd presumably have even maybe breakaway planets like like Mandalore, for example. You really think Mandalore would want to do? I mean, I don't even know if they really wanted to be a part of the Republic to begin with.
They want to rule themselves, not have anyone else.
So you'd presumably have like problems like that, and then you could bring Thrawn in and even do the first order thing, but just has to have Thrawn as the head of it, and then and have all the crime syndicate problems too.
And you mentioning George Lucas as far as like his original pitch for what 7, 8, and 9 could be. For those of you who aren't familiar, it would be basically a pitch where Darth Maul comes back and he's basically taking all the crime syndicates that he's gotten together, grouped together, and rebuilt over the past however many years since he kind of went underground at the Clone Wars TV series. He takes all that and starts causing a lot of big problems because he's amassed a huge empire within the crime syndicate, and with people following like Jabba the Hutt in return. There's other different things here. So there's like a crime vacuum probably at some point in here because the Hutts were huge, and Jabba being one of the biggest in that area. So like it makes sense too. It's like, oh, where did he get all these people? Well, he's been doing this for years.
Well, also, like I said, with the fall of the Empire, the New Republic's army wasn't that big. It was it was the army of the Rebel Alliance, which was not that big. For comparison, the Empire was stretched across the entire galaxy. The majority of the Rebel Alliance's fleet was at the Battle of Endor. That was the majority of their fleet. So the Rebel Alliance and so the New Republic military was not that big. So presumably, all these crime syndicates would have had influence over planets even.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. I mean, the Hutts basically ran Tatooine.
Yeah.
The big cities, if nothing else, they ran the big cities. And yeah, they're not the only ones. I mean, other crime syndicates would have run other planets. And you're talking about earlier with like the Mandalorians. Who do you think they'd rather align with? They'd probably rather align with the crime syndicates because especially if Maul's over it. Because as later seasons of Clone Wars showed us with Maul is a great negotiator, great tactician, and like he's very good at like manipulating people for his benefit. And if you were to like basically go in there and smooth talk the Mandalorians, he'd probably win if nothing else, he could probably win them in combat, and say, hey, look at me, I'm gonna get your honor. That's the thing too. I mean, he took over Mandalorian as it was in the Clone Wars, so he could probably easily do it again.
But also, before Disney Star Wars, the Mandalorian Purge did not happen. So, in Legends, Mandalore was still around, even during the time of the Empire.
Yeah. Well, even think about it too. Like,
presumably they had a tight thumb on Mandalore because an army of Mandalorians, you don't want them to actually be militant.
But let's say though that the Mandalorian Purge still does take place. I mean, look at in the Mandalorian season 3. Look how many Mandalorians there still are out there. Yeah. I mean, they would probably very easily flock to a cause like Maul would be pitching to them. So,
well, I mean,
it would definitely be.
Even if you look at it, they're still a part of that, like underground or whatever. Most of them picked up bounty hunting. They're a part of that underground.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things like that really would make sense for it to be the case in this. I mean, we exhausted this last week. Basically, anything would have been better than the sequel trilogy that we got. But that being aside, I do want to talk about this. Stepping back into the thing with Mara Jade. So Luke Skywalker in Legends, he essentially, just as a very basic line of thought within what he does differently, he sees what's wrong or what was wrong with the teachings of the old Jedi Order, and he corrects it in making his new Jedi Order. That's like one of the biggest things that Luke did in Legends. He made this new Jedi Order, and he made it a lot differently than the old Jedi Order was, with a lot of the flaws that were reasons for the downfall for the Jedi Order. He corrects, and I mean, one of them is like, okay, so a big reason that Anakin turned was because of the way the Council treated him, and because of his fear of losing Padme. But there's a lot of reasons circulating around why he was so afraid of losing Padme, and why he felt like he couldn't turn to anyone because he couldn't trust anyone because they didn't like him. They also didn't like wouldn't have liked the fact that he was married. Well, in Legends, this is Mara Jade. This is Luke Skywalker's wife. So obviously, doesn't have a problem with attachments. I mean, at the end of Return, you can tell Luke does not have a problem with attachments. I think in some ways that's one of Luke's greatest strengths is his attachments. And I think that's one thing that he sees differently than the original Jedi Order is that he doesn't see attachments as weaknesses. He sees them as strengths and he uses them as such.
The whole point of the original trilogy, and specifically Return of the Jedi, is Luke's attachment to his father. He refuses to let his father go. He refuses to let the darkness keep his father. That's
and I will say,
whole point of Return of the Jedi.
Yes. Yeah. I will say this, and this is an interesting thing. I didn't read all of it. Originally, my thought was to talk about Jason Solo and talk about the parallels between him and Kylo Ren. But that's a character that we should talk about at another time. And I went the route of talking about Mara Jade instead. But anyways, with diving into a little bit of that character's fall makes a lot more sense too than what we get in with Kylo Ren. Like basically what happened with Kylo Ren was he was getting a little bit of probing from the Emperor with through what's his name? Snoke, yeah. Getting a little bit with that, and then Luke basically tries to kill him, and then what's the next thing he would do? Of course he'd go turn to the dark side. When it comes to Jason Solo, like he goes through this long, drawn out arc of turning to the dark side. Like it's not like a whim. Like he literally, he goes for a long time, and he's even like unsure of how he feels about using the Force to fight in the Yuzon Vong War, even though he knows it's a good thing because he's saving people's lives, but he's also like, I'm not sure if I should be using the Force for violence. So he has problems with stuff like that he's goes down. He's very much in the philosopher's mindset, trying to think through things and stuff like that, kind of see what Luke says and then kind of analyze it and stuff like that. Well, then he goes and he after the Yuzon Vong War, he gets captured by them and he's tortured for a year straight and influenced by some Jedi or ex-Jedi, not necessarily Sith, but somebody who apparently I think was from like Order 66 Survivor and maybe went maybe to this other galaxy or whatever. I don't remember who the character it is. Like I said, we need to dive into this character, Jason Solo, and his life and story, and we'll probably find this other one. But anyways, she influences him a little bit and is like, well, the Sith aren't right. The Jedi also aren't right. So he has those influences, and that basically takes him to the point where he starts searching out all these other sects of the Force and like, okay, well, what do they think and what do they believe about the Force and and kind of searching, and then eventually stumbles across and the crossroads of now has this wife, now he has this child, and he wants to protect them much in the same way that Anakin does, and he falls to the dark side for very similar reasons that Anakin does with the protection of his family. And it's not the same where like Luke is the whole time telling him, oh, you can't have attachments. Oh, you can't do this. Oh, we're not going to, in whatever way he can to help his nephew. But, his nephew's just straying off to the side because, that's just, people think differently and stuff like that, but he's, doing what he thinks is best, and then it just a little too far close to the edge and falls off. Whereas in the sequels, there's really no reason besides the, Snoke kind of corrupting him. There's really no reason for Kylo to be turning to the dark side. At least no explained reason,
Mm. Well, and that's the thing too, like, even with what they have story-wise in the sequels, I feel like they could have made it work if they had actually explained it and, well, if they actually had an explanation for this stuff. Isn't it not? It's not even. It's not even that they didn't have didn't explain it. I don't think with a lot of the stuff that they even had an explanation for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, that's a huge problem so far that I've had. If I go to criticize anything Disney Star Wars related, and I'm not saying that this isn't even. I don't know. There are obviously problems that are with the originals and with the prequels storyline wise. You know, little things here and there. But like a big problem that I have, and we talked about this a lot when we were talking about Ahsoka, was the lack of explanation. Like they basically just gave you the end result, but they didn't explain how they got there. Like, you know, it's kind of like it's a bad example because okay, you know how in school they always say show your work,
Mm.
you know? Well, the right answer is the right answer either way. But when it comes to storytelling, you need to show how you get to a certain point, you know, because if you don't, or at least have an explanation for it that you at least mention, then there's no reason for us to understand how we get to, you know, a character to this point in time. Now, obviously, if you're starting off and a character, you know, is here and you're like, oh, this is just how they are, it's like, okay, that makes sense. But when you come into a show, especially like Ahsoka, and you come into shows and movies like Star Wars at this point in time, they have history and you're filling in the gaps. But if you go to this far end over here and start telling the story, you need to tell us how they got from this point over here to this point over here. There's a gap here that we don't understand, and you're not explaining the story to us. And if you are, you're not doing it well. And that's a huge thing that I have, you know, a knock on Disney Star Wars, that I feel like they just haven't been explaining things too well with things. And Kylo Ren is an example of that. You know, one thing that they just don't really. I mean, maybe they do explain, but they have a poor explanation for it. You know.
Mm. Which that's the problem you see a lot with all of the original characters from the sequels is they don't explain them. Like the whole thing with Rey too, like the the canon explanation with Rey, and you know this gets it a little bit into the Rise of Skywalker stuff because she's Palpatine's granddaughter, but it's
Mhm.
actually she's actually the daughter of a clone of Palpatine in canon. But they don't mention that in the movie.
Yeah.
They literally do not mention that in the movie. And they probably mention it in the novelization, but it's you know, you can't just say, oh, well, she's no one, and then, oh, no, actually, she's Palpatine's granddaughter. Where did that come from? How? You know?
Yeah. It really is. I mean, here's the thing, and this is something as we talk about the movies, um, uh, Last Jedi next month and Rise of Skywalker the month after that, we'll dive into a lot of those things. But yeah, it really is just like, you know, you can tell, and we said it with Force Awakens, you can tell there is not a through line in these movies. They did not have a plan. They didn't know where they were going with it. And it really just sucks because, okay, I am a firm believer in the fact that Disney needs to get away from the Skywalker saga. They need to get away from the post Return of the Jedi time frame. They need to just stop with it. They just need to get away from all that. Um, and the reason being is because, okay, like talking about Mara Jade here, you're reading the Thrawn trilogy. Like there are some extremely cool stories and characters within this that are well fleshed out and you know, just there for the taking. And Disney decides to go in and make their own characters that are not well thought out, that are not well written. And it's like you don't even have to make stories that are beat for beat the same as the comics or the books or anything like that. But they're there. Take inspiration from them. What do you think Marvel has been doing for the past, you know, 20, however many years since what is he? Hasn't been 20 years yet, but it's getting close, David. Anyways, but like past, you know, couple years since the MCU started, you know what they do? If they aren't taking concepts that have already been comic books, they are making comics to test out the ideas that they're going to do in future movies. Like that's what the comics are there for. They're a simple, easy way to put out ideas and test them with the audience that's going to
I
be
mean,
watching
okay,
these
okay.
movies. I understand. Like I understand that not every single person who's going to watch a movie is going to be a comic fan, but Marvel's been doing this for years. They've been taking old comics and they've been releasing new comics with ideas that they've done in in future
And I
films.
think the premise behind that is, you know, it only takes a few $100,000 to do a run of a comic book, whereas the
Mm-hmm.
multi-million-dollar, blockbuster movie that you would have to
Couple
make.
hundred million.
Yeah,
It's very cost effective. Yes, exactly. And it's like, come on, y'all. Like you have not only could you be putting out comic books to test your ideas before you put it to the big screen, you could take the pre-existing comic book ideas, blend them together, and make really
the
good,
pre
cohesive,
the
fun stories.
pre-existing comics that you own the rights to. You do realize
Yeah, there's no hassle.
all of the extended universe stuff that was written in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, all George Lucas wanted was just you just had to pay to license Star Wars, and you could write a Star Wars book or a comic book or make a game. But Lucasfilm still owned the rights to all that stuff.
Yeah,
Disney got the rights to all of this stuff. Why didn't they use it?
it's a big swing and a miss on Disney. I mean, obviously there's a lot of things that Disney has done that just seem like boneheaded moves, and this is definitely one of them. And it is what it is. And
And
I
even if
mean,
you don't want to make, let's use the Thrawn trilogy as an example. Even if you don't want to make a beat for beat version of it from the books, if you want to draw inspiration from other extended universe sources too, get Timothy Zahn in as a consultant for it.
yeah,
Keep George on
isn't
as a
that what they're doing?
consultant. They're doing that for Heir to the Empire, yes, but
Yeah, good,
but
which is good to do.
yeah,
They're doing
like I said,
something right here.
like I said, get all these people who excuse me, get all these fans who created all these things on board of these projects, and keep George on as a consultant. It's his
Yeah,
universe.
I mean, like yeah. There's so much that could be done, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. For anyone listening to this that's likes anything that's come out Disney Star Wars related, that's great. Like, love what you love. Me and David, we don't particularly like those things that Disney's made, but you know what we do? Sure, we come on here and we talk about it. But like, if you like it, we're not going to argue with you about it being like trash or not. That's your opinion. Like, it all is. Well, it's not all an opinion, but a lot of it's opinion. Okay, and like, what we're going to do about it is we're going to go back and we're going to watch the movies and shows that we like watching, and read through the books and comics that we like reading through, and like live those stories that we like. And if Disney Star Wars is going to continue to, in our minds at least, ruin Star Wars, well, we're probably going to watch less and less of what comes out newer. But it's like, we're still Star Wars fans. Like, people who just like the original trilogy are still Star Wars fans. There's Star Wars fans are so vast and so there's so many things, facets to it all. And it's
Okay.
like what you like because it's a fandom. You're that's what it's here for. It's here for you to like and love and nitpick however you see fit. But at the end of the day, like, you get what you get. But I think we can all say as Star Wars fans that we all have our own personal headcanon, whether it's what's actually canon or not. And I think for a lot of people like me and David, a lot of Legends is our headcanon.
But another thing that this might be a little nitpicky, but
Mm.
another thing about Disney Star Wars, and especially the sequel movies. Okay, so when George Lucas made the original trilogy, he was talking about the how he could not do a lot of what he wanted to do because of the technology at the time. And then when all the
Hmm.
CGI came about, that's when he was like, "Oh, I can actually do that now." And that's when he made the prequels.
Yeah.
The technological advancements since the early 2000s to when they made the sequels, like movies from like 90s, early 2000s, like CGI in those movies compared to what came out around the same time like the Force Awakens came out. But it's night and day. They could
Yeah.
have done so much to actually make the Star Wars universe look amazing. And what did they do? They made an empty universe that just is nothing. We see a couple scenes from when they blew up those planets in the core worlds, but that was basically just the same things we saw in the prequels. They could have done so much more with the technology that they had, and they didn't do it. They just.
Well, you talk. This is obviously the thing that I'm addressing, a thing that you've mentioned to me within what you're talking about here. But you're talking about the originals, the universe feels lived in, and that had to be all extras, but it felt lived in. Then you come out on the prequels, it felt lived in. Whether it's through extras or what, like it all felt lived in. It felt like there was people. And yeah, to your point, the sequels, it's like your main characters, and that's about it. Like, it doesn't feel as lived in. Like, sure, there's scenes, there's points, there's times, but it's like as the whole, it feels like it's missing something.
And the space battles too. Okay, in the Last Jedi, that's when we see the most space battles. It's literally one Super Star Destroyer and one Mon Calamari cruiser. Where are these fleets? Where's the new?
And you can't even say.
Where
And you can't even say anything about oh, it's the all Disney Stars. Rogue One. They had a space battle, and that looks good.
That is probably the Rogue One space battle is probably one of the best space battles in live action. Well, okay. Revenge of the Sith. You can't forget about that one. But
yeah, that's fair.
But visually, for that era, that was one of the best looking space battles. And it's sad that the space battles in the original trilogy are better than most of the ones in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah. Oh, have you seen the things where like the memes or whatever, where it shows clips okay, you got Pirates of the Caribbean and Transformers and old movies like that, from 2000 in the early 10s, late 2000s to early 2010s, where it's the CGI from that era, and it's this was peak CGI. What's happened? Because it really is true. If you look at modern day movies, I don't know what they've done, but Davy Jones holds up, and it's amazing.
You go even
CGI for that.
You go even further back. Look at Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings did a great job with it. Yes,
there are some points where okay, so some of the Ints seem a little aged now, but the Balrog and Gollum,
Gollum specifically.
Yeah, the Balrog's hard to believe. Well, that was one that was actually almost purely CGI. Lord of the Rings used a lot of practical effects too. All the orcs were practical. Yeah. Smeagol was mocap, or Gollum was mocap, but the Balrog was purely CGI, and it still holds up.
Yeah, I will say, and you might have a differing opinion on this. This past year was the first time I'd watched the extended edition. Me and my wife Sarah watched it. Why am I saying that? Nobody on here knows. Me and Sarah watched this. Anyways, huge Lord of the Rings fan, obviously. And so we watched it, and since I had not seen it, I could pick out the added in scenes, whereas she's basically been watching it her whole life and maybe has watched the the theatrical cut once or twice. I could pick out the scenes that were not in it, and one of them was a scene with Gandalf and the Balrog, and I think it was when they were falling. It was either extended or whatever. And I could tell that there were parts in it because it wasn't in the theatrical cut, that it wasn't as polished,
Mm.
and you could tell. But it really even wasn't that bad. But it was a little more noticeable. But yeah, the Balrog as a whole, in what they were intending to be, the movie, yes, like to your point, it looked really good. And like I even like even watching that scene, I wasn't gonna harp on it because I was like, you know, this wasn't like originally meant to be part of the movie. I mean, it was, but like it wasn't like, oh, we have to make this look perfect because it's going to be put out,
Mm.
for the theatrical cut. It's something that was added in because it was,
It was put out as
part of.
it was put out as kind of an afterthought. It wasn't really a
Exactly,
yep,
exactly.
yeah, and
Thank you for putting that into words because I wouldn't have gotten
yeah,
it.
and yeah, the Lord of the Rings being mostly practical effects, the CG with little CGI enhancements here and there, it
Hmm.
shows that it's mostly practical. But even movies like Revenge of the Sith, which came out a couple years later, or well, it would have come out a year after Return of the King, but even that, which was mostly blue screen, still looks really good.
Yeah.
Attack of
Yes,
the
it does.
Attack of the Clones, especially like the Battle of Geonosis, it's bad, but no, Revenge of the Sith is really really good, especially for the time. There are scenes you can
Mhm.
tell that are blue screen, but
Yeah.
okay, like the Mustafar fight. I mean, obviously, they weren't fighting over
They
lava.
were on lava. They weren't on lava, is what I heard. I don't know if I believe that though.
Exactly my point. The Mustafar scenes look amazing,
Mm.
and that was
Yes.
entirely blue screen.
Mm.
That
Yes.
whole thing was entirely blue screen.
The editors on that, masterpiece.
And then you jump forward even a couple years later with Avatar. I'm not a huge fan of Avatar, but that was like groundbreaking CGI. The effects in
Mhm.
it are amazing.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing too with Avatar. Avatar is pretty much an animated movie, but it's animated so well, like what we call it live action.
Yes, it's true. Uh, but I don't know what's happened since then because like you watch movies now, if there's CGI in it, like okay, I think maybe one thing that was really, and this might be the case, things might be too good if you understand what I'm saying. Like you know how like it's so good it's distracting,
Mm.
whereas maybe back then it wasn't distracting. It just felt like it was supposed to be there. You know, um, or maybe it has more to
Well,
do with the stories and
okay.
people aren't making them believable
Also,
enough that this is
okay, look at Marvel, and I know Marvel has moved more from practical to CGI, but like
and it sucks.
CGI in modern Marvel movies is not good.
Yeah.
Okay, look at Iron Man. Iron Man was
Hmm.
originally practical suit with touched up with CGI, and then in the most recent Black Panther movie, they had the Ironheart or whatever, who
Yeah.
that suit was 100% CGI, and it looks terrible.
I've only seen the movie once. I don't remember that much.
But my point, like, I feel like movies moving away from practical effects and rushing the CGI makes it just look awful.
But also spikes their budget too. So it's like, if you go back to the way things were, you might end up having a better product and a better budget.
Go back to using miniatures and touched up with CGI. Get practical effects touched up with CGI. It looks so
Yeah.
much better. And that is one thing I will say for the sequels. They did use or they did for the most part use real sets, but where they did use CGI, it was unimpressive. And
Yeah.
CGI is where you can show off.
Hmm. I really do think a lot of the things. that I have problems with when it comes to Disney Star Wars are quote unquote little things, but it's
But
the little things that if you don't get them right,
but also when there are so many
yeah,
little things that they get wrong, it adds up.
yeah, so many things adding up, so many little things adding up, and it really is the little things that count. So if you're missing even one or two little things here, it's going to show that something's off. But if you get those little things down, like you're going to make really impressive things, but they just have failed to do that as a whole, not in every little aspect. Like there are things that Disney has put out. Like I said, there are things that Disney put out that I like, but as a whole, I have problems with it, and because they cut corners, they cut costs, they do a lot of different things that they just it's the little things, and they're not doing the little things, and that's a big problem with it.
Mm. And see, that's the thing too. With the prequels, yes, George cannot write dialogue. The stories are some of the plot points are questionable, but it's those attentions to detail that George had with making those movies, with all the effects
Yeah.
and the score. The Star Wars has always had an amazing soundtrack. The soundtrack in the sequels was just a rehash of the soundtrack from the prequels and the original trilogy. There was no Imperial March or Duel of the Fates in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah. Was John Williams part of the sequels?
I actually do not know. Let me look that up.
You did that, and now I'll talk a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things that, like I said, Star Wars is what you make of it. If you like, okay, here's the thing. It's kind of funny because we talk about, oh, this is canon, or oh, this is legends. It's all a story. It's all stories that we've made up. So if you want to go and read a book about a Star Wars story and you're like, oh, this is my favorite thing ever, who's to tell you that you can't love that? It's still Star Wars. Who's to tell you that the character that you yourself made up in your backyard and play with every single day or play as every single day in your backyard as a little kid isn't Star Wars? Like, sure, it's not, there's not going to be a movie made about it, but that doesn't mean it's not Star Wars for you. And as much as we dog on the stuff, it's like, if you like Disney Star Wars, whatever. But like, Star Wars is for fans. Star Wars is for you to make of it as what you want. And, you know, I don't want it to be the sequels. I want it to be Legends and, the original six and stuff like that. But, you can be different with that. And this conversation has gone all over the place, but it's mostly been dogging on Disney Star Wars, which is fair because, we are talking about a character that could have been a part of Disney Star Wars in the movies that they were going to make, but instead they decided to cut her out. And in a second here, I do want to read essentially the gist of how, or I guess I can just talk about it. There's a lot to it, a lot of names I don't want to read, but talking about her death. But I mean, it is a thing when you have a universe this big, like, me and Sarah have talked about it. And I actually want to hear what your opinion is on this, David. You're a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so you will have an opinion on this, being a huge Star Wars fan as well. I think that there is more Star Wars lore than Lord of the Rings lore. And the reason being is because Tolkien was one person, but Star Wars has been written by multiple people.
So that's the thing too. So Lord of the Rings, I feel like, is the most impressive amount of lore that one person came up with. Because I don't think there's anything else that one person came up with that compares to that.
No.
Harry Potter comes close. A Song of Ice and Fire probably comes close. But Lord of the Rings, I feel like, is more impressive. But yeah, there's
Mhm.
compared to the amount of stuff that exists in Star Wars in Legends, it it,
Mhm.
it doesn't come close.
Yeah. And that being said, there's like so much to it that you know, I don't know. There's a lot to Star Wars and a lot that hey, you and I are going to be and can talk about. But you know, that being said, like Tolkien was an amazing writer, and it shows in his work. But because of the collaboration of so many good writers in Star Wars, we have very good, well-rounded characters. Characters that have motives, that have uh, reason to do the things. That's what a motive is. Anyways, they're just really well-written characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll shut up about that. But anyway, so I do want to talk about the fact as to how Mara Jade died, and we can hop on to some other things after this. But essentially, what happened was Darth Cadus, the other name for Jason Solo, it is Darth Cadus, right?
Think so? Sounds right.
That's what sounds right. Anyways,
Well,
I
it
know
sounds
how it's
right.
spelled, so
Whether or not it is right
here's
is
the
another thing, but it sounds right.
I know how it's spelled, okay, because I read it earlier. I know how it's spelled. So if you're listening to this and you comment down below what it says, I've read that before. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, that's completely different. Anyways, Darth Cadus is the person who kills her, and the reason that she goes after him is because she sees him as a threat on her and her family. So he at one point was kind of took Ben Skywalker under his wing and was kind of looked like he was kind of manipulating him a little bit. And so she started hunting down Darth Cadus. And they had a fight. And, being the warrior that she is, she did end up getting the upper hand and was about to strike him down. But he made basically essentially using the force, made himself look or had a projection of Ben uh, over his face. So he hesitated ever so long for him to stab her in the thigh with like some poison or whatever, and so she ended up dying. And her last words were not that. Anyways, uh, that's not it either. Okay, her last words: "You think you've won, but Luke will crush you, and I refuse to let you destroy the future for my Ben." And then she died. X's over the eyes, Lego style. Anyways, uh, anyways, so they do go on to I think Jaden Solo ends up killing Jason Solo a little bit later on. She does instead of what most Jedi's do, and they become one with the Force and their body disappears. She left her body there. As she died, so that basically it could be found as evidence and people could see what was happening with Jason. Um, but she obviously did a lot in her life. Uh, I don't know when she died. I don't know what the year would have been. But she she'd been around for a while. She did a lot of things and um, married Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker went on to kill Darth Cadus's, I think it was his apprentice, some other person who was along in cahoots with Cadus. And then after realizing that she wasn't the killer, he kind of decided that it would have been better for him not to take the revenge approach, and kind of reserved himself a little bit more, kind of saw it a little bit better, and I guess he got his killing out of the way. But anyways, um, but it does show that like Luke, Legends of Luke, he had attachments, he had a family, um, he built a great academy for Jedi, and it's not like he didn't have his flaws, but he was more willing to. He understood that, and this is in a galaxy far, far away, so not everyone's humans. But it's like he understood that people aren't perfect, and that you don't need to treat them as such, and you don't need to have a ideology that everyone needs to be in that way. Like everyone needs to be detached from emotions. Everyone needs to be, essentially perfect because it's light. It's like you need to understand people better. And I think that's one thing that the Jedi Order originally didn't do, and he does a lot better. And he wasn't afraid to have attachments, like you said, was a big part of Return of the Jedi. Here he has a wife, he has a son, and those I think are part of his greatest strengths. I also want to mention they talk about it in this article here where the death of Chewbacca and how she wasn't able to go because of those spores that she had, and they were causing her to be sick and stuff like that. And they talk about how basically how hard it's going to be for Han to deal with the death of Chewbacca. Yet nobody wants to give Chewbacca a hug when Han dies. It's just so sad.
Poor Chewie.
Poor Chewie. I'll give you a chew. I'll give you a chew. I'll give you a hug, buddy. I'll console you after Han dies. But very interesting character, and yeah, there's a lot of information out there if you want to read more about the character of Mara Jade Skywalker. Like I said, type her into Google and you can find her.
We've been talking about Mara Jade and Disney Star Wars for about an hour now, so what do you say we go ahead and jump on into what's new with you?
Sure.
Alrighty. If I can actually get over here to switch us over to that.
What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope anyone listening to this didn't think that Star Wars was no longer going to be the topic. It may not be for the whole time, but David, I do want to ask what your thoughts are on that video that I sent you.
It was cool. I enjoyed watching it. It was really good.
For those of you who are interested or want to know what we're talking about, if you look up, basically all you need to look up on YouTube is "Hello There," and try and find a channel that is called "Hello There." But essentially, what it is they take the animation style from the Clone Wars TV series, and they redo the infight for Revenge of the Sith, where Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting. I think it's called Battle of the Heroes. So you also could look up that "Hello There, Battle of the Heroes." That's the channel name and the title of the video, I believe. But anyways, it's a very well done video. From what I heard, like this is something that obviously has been in the works for a long time. I think I heard like 2020. So the fact that it's like just came out at the end of the year, a couple of days ago, would have been the end of 2023. This shows the amount of work and dedication that the team, whoever did this, did. It's an amazing video. It's basically just the same thing, but the reason that I like it so much is because of the fact that it basically takes the characters that you learn to love throughout the Clone Wars TV series, and it takes Anakin from that and turns him into Darth Vader, which is something that we don't really see a whole lot of. I think, like, you have the Mortis arc where we kind of see the flashes and the glimpses and stuff like that, but it's not the same. But here we actually see him transform and him actually fighting Obi-Wan and him in all that area. Because you think about it, like, yeah, as much as I think you and I can agree that we really like Revenge of the Sith, they have to, and they do a pretty good job of it, but they have to rush us getting to the point where we actually like this character for him to only fall, you know, because there's not a whole lot of building for it. You don't really care for him too much in Attack of the Clones. Like, he's just a whiny brat. But the character of Anakin in this, as far as Clone Wars, you get a lot more attached to him. At least I personally feel like I'm a lot more attached to that character, and to see that character with the fall is different. You know, it's more impactful in some ways. In some ways, not every way, but in some ways, I feel so.
Yeah, you do get to see it. The different, I do agree with you, the difference in the characterization of what we see with Hayden Christensen and the Clone Wars Anakin is, yeah, you do get a lot more attached to the Clone Wars Anakin, and I feel like part of that is time constraints with, you know, only having really 2 movies with that character.
Yeah, and I mean, it's understandable. And like I said, I think that Revenge of the Sith did it very well. Like, you do really feel it when he falls. And in all honesty, like, me and Sarah were talking about this a couple days ago, with like how you watch Anakin's fall and you understand it. You're like, if I was in that position, I probably would be doing the exact same thing. Like, you understand it, you sympathize with it, but it still hurts to watch. You know, and I think this makes an extra layer of depth. I started. It was real. The animators, again, props to them. They did an amazing job with this. They did a really good job at the end there. The emotion that you could tell after Kenobi dealt the killing blow, and he's just like watching Anakin. Like, you can see it's animated, and you can just see the emotion on the face. Like, there's just like unexplainable details that they added in, with like the pain that you can tell that Kenobi's having to deal with after having done that to, you know, his best friend, you know, his brother, you know, and they did that very well. And you know, this is not we're not a big channel. It's not something that this is, you know, going to be seen or whatever. But if at any point in time, hey, y'all who did this, you did an amazing job, and I know y'all are getting a lot of praise for it, because, you know, the Star Wars community, they love their fan films, and y'all did a great job with that. So go check it out if you haven't watched it, and if you are in any way interested. Hello there. There's a channel, and I think it's called Battle of the Heroes.
Yeah.
So you'll probably find it. It came out a couple of days ago, or it came out probably about a week or so ago from the time that this is going to come out. And it's blowing up.
If you've watched Star Wars YouTube, it probably has already come up in your recommended.
Yes, yeah. Had you watched it? I didn't. I was gonna say, had you seen this, but I just went ahead and sent the video.
I had seen the thumbnail and seen it.
Okay.
I hadn't watched it, but I had seen the video. You know, video probably was my recommended.
Yeah, I think I had seen it a couple of times, but I finally sat down and watched it today, and I was just like, "Oh, this is really good." So I wanted to talk to you about it. Anyways, what else, David? What else is new with you?
Have you watched Rebel Moon yet?
Nope. I might be having some time to do some watching coming up this week, because Sarah's going on a little trip, the girls trip, not the girls trip, but a girls trip that my family does. They go scrapbooking for a weekend, so she'll be gone after tomorrow, so I'll have time to watch stuff. It's just a matter of, will I watch it?
You should watch it.
Okay, well, I'll try and watch it, and then we can maybe talk about it next week.
Okay. But other than that, I mean, we've had family around, so, you know, I haven't really watched a whole lot of stuff that, you know, that I normally would. I have been playing a lot of Super Smash Brothers, but because I got it for Christmas, so.
Well, cool.
I also just recently got the
What's that? No, go ahead.
I also just recently got the expansion stuff for Nintendo Switch Online. So I was playing a couple of
Oh, cool.
older games like the N64. I started Mario 64.
Yeah. Have you played with that? Have you played the 64 Mario Kart?
Yes, I tried that.
That is hard. I don't know if it's just the controls or what, but it is not easy to play.
I will say Mario Kart has come a long way. Actually, I think just video games in general have come a long way.
Video games in general, yes, yes.
You really see it with Mario games because the Mario franchise has been around for so long. But again, video games in general have come a long way.
Yeah. Speaking of video games, I've recently in the past year gotten really big into Legos, and I've been playing a bunch of Lego games. Well, I finally finished one of them, Lego City Undercover. I finished. Looking back on it, it's not a very long campaign. It's very short. I've completed the whole thing, and usually when I play through Lego games, when I'm doing them, like I go through everything in a room. So like if there's a puzzle that I can do in the story mode, I do it. So if like there's like mini kits, coin things like True Hero or whatever, any of those things, like I get them, whatever's able to be gotten in the story mode. And so that's what I did throughout the this story mode. And this is essentially Lego City Undercover is essentially Lego GTA. So most of the game is in the open world, which is huge. And it shows because I finished the story mode and I only have 23% of the game completed.
Yeah, I need to finish the story for Lego City Undercover. I have it. I just haven't.
It's really not that long. Like
no, it's not. But
it's really not that long.
I started.
I didn't realize how short it was. Honestly,
so that's one of those games that I started, or I bought on the eShop, Nintendo Switch eShop on sale, and I started it because I was bored, and then never picked it back up again. I have a lot of games like that I need to go back and actually finish.
Yeah.
Because there's games like that where like the story might not necessarily be like the most like compelling. It might be a good story, but it might not necessarily be the most compelling. So I'm just like, I can take it or leave it. There's other games that I can pick up that just the story grabs you immediately, or the gameplay grabs you immediately. But that's one I need to finish.
Well, now this is going to be one that I'm going to be not necessarily struggling, but it's very much going to be a game now that I play when I'm bored because it's all open city. So there's the little quests or things, missions you can go on within the city to do, and that's all that I have left. I do want to end up finishing it. I am still growing my collection of of Lego games. I have a lot of them, but I need to finish what I have, and then Sarah will let me buy more. They're on sale. They only cost like $3 or $4. But anyways,
yeah, I've got several.
He's right. Stopping me.
I've got several on Xbox that I haven't even started yet. So I've got
on Xbox.
I've got the collection of all 3 of the Marvel Lego games. I think it's the Marvel Superheroes 1 and 2 and the Lego Avengers. And then I've also got Lego Jurassic. Is it Lego Jurassic World or Lego Jurassic Park?
Are there 2 separate games for that?
I don't think there's 2 separate ones. I just can't remember if it's Jurassic World or Jurassic Park. I think it's Jurassic World.
I got one for Christmas. I think it's World. I got one for Christmas, but I don't remember what it is. I just know it has to do with that franchise. I haven't played it yet.
I also don't know if it's,
and I'll get around to that.
I also don't know if it goes back to the older movies, because I think it's Lego Jurassic World, but I don't know if it goes back to the older movies too and the new one, because I know it came out after the first Jurassic World came out. So I know that there are Lego, or if it goes back to the older movies.
There's something Lego related to the older movies, I think. I'll let you know in probably a couple months when I get around to playing Lego Jurassic World. But currently, I just have the game, but I need to finish.
Or it might be one of those things where the game is just the new movie, but it has all the characters from the old movies that are unlockable. It might be that kind of thing.
That might be the case too. But yeah, currently I need to finish Ocarina. I got Mario. Well, okay, so this isn't going to be one that I'm going to need to finish before I start Jurassic World. I have we got Mario 1, and that's one that me and Sarah playing through, which I feel like I made a mistake in that because it'll take me a lot longer to play through it than if I were just to play it by myself. But I was like, hey, Mario games, those are the games that we play together. So and I'm also making Lego Harry Potter a game that we're going to play together after we finish Lego Lord of the Rings, which we are both very frustrated with.
That's one of those ones that I have got like 86% in Lego Lord of the Rings. I just it's those last couple mini kits that I need to get, last couple gold bricks or mithril bricks I need to get.
Well, currently we have played total of probably 6 or 7 times the Swampy Marshes level. The first couple of times, yeah, the first couple of times, I don't think it saved right or something, but it took us back. The other day, Sarah played it like 3 or 4 times, and when you get past it and you're fighting the elephants, it literally just crashed. The game just glitched out and crashed. It did it 3 times, and now we're just like, we got to figure out how to get past this so that we can be done with it. I'm like, Sarah every once in a while will be like, hey, you want to play Lego Lord of the Rings? I'm like, no, I do not, because I know we have to get through that level first, and I don't want to play that level. So that's what's stopping us currently. But once we get through that, I feel like it'll be pretty smooth sailing, and we'll probably end up finishing it, rather quickly after that. But it's just that level. Like, we played it 10 times. It's not even a fun level. It's just a level.
It's also kind of annoying with that game too. Is the fact that it's because of licensing issues and stuff. It's technically back compat on Xbox, but you have to buy it physically.
Mm-hmm.
You have to buy the 360 copy of it, because it's, like I said, it's technically back compat, but you can't buy it on the Microsoft Store because of a bunch of all the licensing issues.
Yeah. I had tried to buy it before, and then I realized you couldn't get it without buying a physical copy. And then Sarah got it for me because she wanted to. Well, one, she knew I won Lego games. It was like my birthday or whatever. And then 2, it was like, oh, Lord of the Rings. And so
it's like all the other older Star Wars Lego games, like the Lego Star Wars games, are back compat, and you can buy them on the Microsoft Store. Like, you can buy Lego, the Complete Saga. You can buy like Lego Indiana Jones, Lego Batman on the Microsoft Store. But
I have Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga and Lego Batman on the Xbox, and they're from the store, Microsoft Store. So get them on sale, and it's a little cheaper. Anyways. So David, moving away a little, unless you had any final thoughts, moving away a little bit from video games. I know you said you haven't had time to watch much. Did you watch the college football playoffs last night? As of us recording this last week, as of this coming out.
I
guess as of last,
I didn't watch them, but I did keep up with the games.
Definitely worth watching, but they were really good games. Like, here's the thing. I'm not saying that people who had a problem with Florida being left out shouldn't have a problem with Florida being left out. I'm just saying that we got 2 really good college football games. Like, I don't care one way or another, because I'm not a FSU fan, but we got 2 really good games for the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl.
I will say,
Sugar Bowl.
I was kind of surprised to see. Okay, because I thought we were going to get Alabama, Texas as the natty. I was completely wrong.
I was, here's the thing. So last night, me and Sarah were watching the games, and she was like, "Oh, we started off like halfway through. I think it was like third quarter. I tuned in to Michigan, Alabama, and I was like, and she was like, "Who are we rooting for?" And I said, "We're rooting for Michigan." I said, "Now Michigan is number one, but we're still rooting for the underdog here." And same thing came in with the Texas Washington game. And I was like, in all honesty, we're still rooting for the underdog when we're rooting for Washington here. Even though they're the higher seeds, nobody believes in them. And I think, here's the thing. Texas played a really good game against Washington. But I think what was shown in that game, and you didn't watch it, so I wish we get a little more feedback on this. I felt like watching that game, Texas had no business being in the playoffs. They were basically Michigan from years past.
After all the New Year's Six games, if you wanted to say who was the best teams, who should have been in the playoffs, it should have been Michigan, Washington, Bama, and Georgia. Yes, Florida State didn't have a lot of their starters. Georgia did. But that game was Georgia saying, or basically making a statement saying that they should be the national champions this year.
Yeah. Which, I'm not going to lie, I don't think that they would have come out on top as a whole. I think they probably would have, because Michigan is better than they've been in years past. Washington, I think that their defense isn't as good, but like they're still a really good team. And Georgia is on a down year compared to previous national championship teams. But I feel like it would have been a good game. And hey, Georgia may still have come out on top, with a game that could have been like a coin flip. Mm-hmm. But like, I just think that it wouldn't have been as clear cut as they've been in years past.
Yeah. I was yesterday, which would have been last week for when this episode comes out. I did watch Liberty, Oregon, mm-hmm. which was kind of disappointing. I mean, okay, I didn't expect Liberty to win. I just it was kind of disappointing that it was that much of a blow.
Well, me and Maggie were talking about it this past Saturday before the game happened. And we were talking about it, and I was like, for all intents and purposes, Liberty's playing out of their caliber with the team like Oregon. Mm. Now, Liberty deserves to be in the bowl. They deserve to be ranked where they're ranked because it's not easy going undefeated and winning your conference no matter what you're in. Mm. It's not easy. They did that. They deserve to be here. But they had no business playing Oregon in the sense of Oregon is a way better team than they are. And she just said, her comment was, and I agree with this, is she was like, she wanted Oregon and the Oregon Liberty game to be like the number 20, it was number 23 playing number 8, right?
Number 6. Wait, no.
Number 6. She wanted.
Was it number 6?
I thought it was 8.
Might have been 8, yeah. I'm
but it's like she wanted it to be basically being like, hey, the number 23 team played the number 6 or 8 team. You're looking it up. We'll get confirmation in a second. But she wanted to basically be like, okay, this is what's expected. Like they're ranked in this position for a reason, and they played as such. And I think that score, even though it really wasn't that great of a score for Liberty, still showed that, even still. Like the win for Liberty was making this bowl in the first place. It wasn't being the winners of this game. They could have gotten slaughtered worse than this, and they still won in this equation because they made this bowl.
But that's kind of thing, like the point of the of a G5 team making it to a New Year's Six bowl is not the fact that they're so good they might actually win this. It's the fact that they went to a New Year's Six bowl is the honor.
Yeah. And I mean that it really is good for Liberty, and Liberty is in the past couple of years been really getting their name on the map and really having some great seasons, having some good players come out of Liberty. So, I mean, Liberty's been doing good, and them losing to Oregon is like, I mean, plus Bo Nix played for some reason, so like, yeah, they were going to get slaughtered because, him on the field, they're going to rack up points. So it is what it is. I did see the score for that game and kept up with it. And yeah, like you said, I wasn't surprised. But it was good seeing Liberty in a bowl like that. They deserve that very, very much so.
I was kind of surprised that Liberty did score on the opening drive. Liberty, like, literally, like, they just...
So they scored and then they missed a field goal?
Yeah. They literally pushed down the field on the opening drive, got a touchdown, missed the extra point, and that's the only score they had the entire game.
I mean, that's kind of understandable in all honesty for teams like this, because usually out the gate, even teams like that, like usually like they'll do something to surprise the other team, but the other team won't take them seriously, and then they'll get punched in the mouth, they'll taste the blood, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, now let's just put the foot on the neck and take care of business, and then they do that, and that's probably very much what happens in a case like that for Oregon getting scored on by Liberty. So David, this episode will come out the morning before the national championship game. So is it Monday night, or is it a Sunday night game, or is it Monday? I thought it was Monday.
I thought there was a 2-week gap between.
I thought it came out next week. Well, look that up, but I want to know what your prediction for next week's game is. Or not next week. The national championship game, whenever it ends up being.
Oh, it is January 8th. Okay. Yeah, so it will be the same day this comes out. Okay,
so it'll be later tonight if anyone's listening to this day of. If not, you already know. But David, who do you think's going to win, Washington or Michigan? Who do you think's
okay?
Who's going to come out on top?
I think I have not seen.
And do you think it's going to be a close game?
It's going to be a good game. I have not seen these teams play well enough to say for sure, but just from what I have seen, I think Michigan is probably going to pull away with the win.
Yeah, I'd probably be inclined to agree with that. So last night, both games came down to the last play of the game.
Well, the Bama-Michigan game went to overtime, so.
Yeah. But, I mean, up until that last play, nothing was decided. And then the very last play of the game, with 1 second on the clock, Texas has a ball batted down in the end zone, and that solidifies Washington as being the winners. And, both games came down to the wire. Obviously, Michigan, Alabama went to overtime. And I feel like that's going to be a very similar thing for this next week's game. I think it's going to come down to the wire. Either it's going to be decided on the last play of the game, or it's going to go into overtime, one of the two. And I do think Michigan's probably going to come out on top. I think Washington defense can keep up with Michigan's offense. I think they're a little bit too good. Now, that being said, I'm not dogging on Washington's defense. I think that they're still good. I just don't think that they're going to be able to do good enough against Michigan as a whole. Because Michigan can hurt you in the air and Michigan can hurt you on the ground. And I think that there is a little bit of lacking.
I do kind of like the fact that both teams are undefeated going into this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is pretty. Hey, we're back to traditional 4-team playoff or 4-game playoff, 14 playoff. Said it right the first time. Anyways, undefeated. But yeah, here's the thing too. Florida, whether they made it in or not, I don't think Florida was gonna be in the championship. So I think this is going to be the championship that we were going to have either way.
So that's the thing with Florida State. I mean, yes, I still think based off their record, they should have gone to the playoffs. But because like you look at them getting absolutely murdered by Georgia, like it wasn't even funny. It was a bloodbath.
Yeah.
But you also have to look at that and saying like most of Florida State starters did not play in that game.
Yeah.
They were on their third string quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And Georgia still had a lot of their starters. I mean, yes, they put their third string in towards the end, but Georgia also has a much more strict program. To be on the team, you have to be good,
be committed.
Yeah.
And be on the team. Yeah, good.
Just to even be on the team, but
yeah.
Florida State didn't have a chance. If they had been at the playoffs, more of their starters would have been there. Would not have opted out.
Yeah.
But I still feel like they wouldn't have been able to compete against Michigan and Washington.
Yeah, I think that would have still been the case. Yeah.
Well, so, okay. Look at this. If Georgia had won and gone undefeated, they probably would have been the 1 seed, and they would have played Florida State because Florida State would have been the 4.
Mm-hmm.
We would have ended up with the same thing. It wouldn't have been as much of a bloodbath, but we would have ended up with the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely think all in all, I'm happy with what we got, at least product wise. It's two very good games back to back. And then I think next week's game or today's game is going to be very good as far as that goes. And I'm rooting for the Hardballs because this is a chance for Michigan to win. And then, in all honesty, the Ravens are pretty much the best team in the NFL. They're rolling over people. So they have a really good shot at probably rematching the 49ers in the Super Bowl.
I was about to say that I was about to ask you who you think it is because that's my prediction right now is Ravens Niners.
Oh, those are the two best teams. And you think about it, the Chiefs are not good this year. Even though 9-5 is not horrible, unless they've dropped to 9-6. They 9-5 after the Raiders lost. Anyway, they've been playing poorly. The Rams haven't been playing good. The Bills haven't been playing that great. They just smoked the Dolphins last week, and the Dolphins were the only other team. They were the second team in the NFC. Is it NFC or AFC? I get confused with divisions.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, so they were the team right below them, but the Dolphins aren't good. The Dolphins are only 11-4 or 11-5 because they play teams that aren't good. They're so I think I saw a thing. It was they're 1-5 or something, 1-6 against teams above 500. They don't play well against good teams. And last week showed that they played really bad. But I mean, Lamar Jackson's playing out of his mind. He has weapons around him. He should get the MVP. And they made that statement against the 49ers, showing that he should get the MVP. And their defense is playing crazy. So
right now in the AFC North, Ravens are the best team in the AFC North with 13-3. Then the Dolphins are 11-5, which I don't think they're as good as everyone says they are. AFC South is a 3-way tie between the Jaguars, the Colts, the Texans. They're all 9-7. The AFC West is the Chiefs. They're 10-6. Let's see. So for the NFC, so I feel like for the AFC, the Ravens pretty much have the AFC in the bag at this point.
I mean, you even look at the NFC, the 49ers are only the really only good team on that side either.
Okay, the weird thing about this though is, okay, so in the NFC East, it's a tie between the Cowboys and the Eagles. Both of them are 11-5. I could see the either one of them making it too.
I think the NFC is going to probably be the Eagles versus the 49ers. I think the Cowboys, I think that they're the same Cowboys we've been having all for years past. Cowboys aren't good. They're overrated. Dak Prescott is the most overrated person in the world.
Yeah.
That's a little extreme, but
in the NFC North, the Lions are also 11-5.
The Lions are actually low-key good. I forgot about them. It's because of the Lions. But that being said, did you see the thing with them playing against the Cowboys?
Oh yeah.
That controversy? That's the stupidest thing. The Cowboys should have lost that game.
Mm-hmm. The NFC West is, of course, the Niners. They're 12-4, and then no one in the NFC South is good.
Isn't who is it? Is it Buccaneers that are the number one at like 7 and something?
The Buccaneers and the Saints are both 8-8.
8-8. Okay, I know. Like
the Falcons are 7-9, and I'm sorry, but the Panthers are 2-14.
Hey, don't worry. My sister's converting me to the Ravens. I think I'm just starting to become an honorary Ravens fan.
Let's see.
It's not bandwagon because my sister's converting me. It's not like I'm just jumping on the bandwagon. She's pulling me.
Are the Panthers the worst team in the NFL right now? I think they are.
The Bears aren't worse than us?
The Bears are 7-9.
Never mind. Well, the Bears still suck.
Okay. But the Bears, with the exception, the Bears are in the same division as the Vikings and the Packers, who are not good.
Yeah.
Yes, they also have Detroit in the same division, but again, the Vikings and the Packers are not good this year either.
Well, I think the reason I was thinking that they were the worst was because they have the first pick, I think, in the draft, but that's probably through trades and stuff like that.
They probably traded up, and then let's see the.
The Panthers are trash. And the thing is I do want to say, I think I've said this before. The reason they're trash is not because Bryce Young sucks. Not exclusively. Like, he may or may not. How are we supposed to tell when he doesn't have any time to throw the ball? Sure, he's making mistakes. He's first year. He's a rookie. Like, NFL is completely different than college. Anyone who's been in the league, I'm not saying I've been in the league, but I've heard plenty of people talk about the differences. People are bigger, stronger, faster. It is crazy.
Also,
it's different when you have a 300-pound lineman coming at you at 90 miles an hour and he's going to kill you. You're going to just throw the ball away and hope he doesn't hit you anymore.
But also, Arizona, Washington, and New England.
Arizona's trash too.
Are all 4-12.
Yeah. I don't remember who the first game we won was, but I know we beat the Falcons, which isn't saying anything, but we beat the Falcons. So.
Let me see if I can pull up your or the Panthers.
Yeah, what's the other trash team that lost to us?
All right, so let's see. Week 1 was a loss to the Falcons. Week 2 was a loss to the Saints. Then lost to the Seahawks, lost to the Vikings, lost to the Lions, lost to the Dolphins. Win over the Texans.
Oh, Texans, yeah.
Then lost to the Colts, lost to the Bears, lost to the Cowboys, lost to the Titans, lost to the Bucks, lost to the Saints. Won against the Falcons, lost to the Packers, lost to Jacksonville.
Man, I saw a clip from that the end of that Packers game. Like, I didn't watch the game. I don't really keep up with them that much, just enough to kind of know what's going on. But I saw a clip from it like after the game happened, and I was like, "Oh, look at that! We're doing really good against the Packers." I was like, "That's great!" Like I know they're not what they used to be, but hey, we're still doing good against the Packers. And I looked at the score, and it was 33-30, and I was like, "Really? We lost to them on a field goal?"
Jacksonville destroyed y'all.
That's not surprising.
26-0.
Yeah. I think Bryce Young might have gotten hurt again in that game.
Maybe.
I think I saw that he got hurt, which he's
it,
not going to be doing great anyways, let alone any backup that we would
it's kind of
have.
sad that Jacksonville is. I mean, the AFC South is tied right now with the Texans, the Colts, and the Jags. But it's kind of sad that the Jags are probably the best team when they're not really that. I mean, they're just kind of a middle of the pack NFL team right now.
Yeah. Well,
which is better than where they were a few years ago. But
yeah, which I hope. And here's the thing. This is why it's not going to be the case. But I hope the Panthers get to that place. But the reason they're not is because the organization is trash for the Panthers. David Tepper doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know how to run an NFL team. He owns soccer teams, not NFL teams. This is a different kind of football you're playing with. You don't know what you're doing, and it shows. Like if you want to own the team, that's fine, but get a good GM and stay out of their hair. Like just rake in the money and don't worry about what's going on with the team. Let the GM run it. You're firing people left and right. I'm not saying he was a good coach or whatever. I didn't watch it. I don't know. But they fired a coach of less than a year a couple of weeks ago. And it's like, that's not a smart move. So what if he's 2 and whatever? Like, or not even 2. He wouldn't have won it. He was fired before they won against the Falcons. But it's like, so what if he's losing every game of the season? You got to give him time to do stuff. This team has been trashed for years.
If you have a brand new coach every year, you're not going to make anything happen.
No one wants to come here. Nobody wants to play here. No one wants to coach here. No one's gonna, because you're making a bad work environment, and it's going to stay this way until Tepper sells the team. Because if he does, I'm going to be forever a diehard Panthers fan because that was the first team that I started liking within the NFL. But I'm rooting for the Ravens. We're just going to put it that way. But I also root for McCaffrey. So if there's a Ravens 49ers Super Bowl, I'm not going to be sad at either win.
I don't know.
But I'll have to be a little sad for my sister's sake.
I don't know. I kind of want to see the Eagles get back in because
nah, Eagles are trash. Hurts is overrated. I'm just saying things now, but
it would be interesting if the Lions got in.
That wouldn't be bad. If I saw that, because of the underdog narrative that the Lions have been trash for years, I wouldn't mind that. But they would lose to the Ravens.
Yeah. Let's see. Bengals have kind of disappointed me this year. Bills have kind of disappointed me this year.
Well, the Bengals have an excuse. Burrow's been hurt all year, and Jamar Chase hasn't been doing that much. He's been getting injured a little bit here and there. He didn't come through too much on my fantasy team, so.
True.
Although I did get third place. I missed out on the championship, but I won the third place game, so I got third place. I'll take what I can get. My team wasn't that great. Just better than a lot of other. I got blown out in the semifinals to go to the championship game. I think it was like the other guy had like 160 something points, and I had like 85. It did not end well for me. But anyways, for anyone who follows fantasy, you'll understand. The disappointment that I had to deal with. But
we've been recording for an hour and 45 minutes, so. I feel like people are probably. I feel like people are probably tired of us talking about football.
Yeah. Yeah, probably people telling us to stop. But hey, don't worry. Football season will be over in a little while, and since we are not a football
Well,
show, we will not be talking about football in the off season. Or
next week, you will probably hear us talk about the national championship, just because it will happen the night before we record.
Yeah.
And then in a few weeks, you'll probably hear us talk about the Super Bowl. And then you probably won't have to hear us talk about football until next fall. So
yeah, so give a little break there. But if you stick around,
but we're not football.
Right?
We're not a football podcast. We're not football experts. So
yeah. So take what we say with a grain of salt. We're just talking. Anyways, if you stuck around this far, please be sure to like the video. I mean, it's not that hard. You just click it. And if you've done that and you've actually stayed this long, why not subscribe to the channel too if you like what you've heard? If not, well, why'd you stick around for so long?
Let us know what you thought in the comments down below, or you can DM us on Instagram down there YC. And as for that, join us next week. And yeah,
you messed it up, David. It's and be sure to join us next week on the Trailcast. I'm in the rhythm of it because I say it every week, so it's okay. It's understandable.
Well, we did kind of mess up our outro there. We didn't do our normal one, but whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. You'll be fine.